welcome to another video. In this particular video, I'll be performing an approach at which you might see now why an individual might need such a thing as a rehabilitation. Which in the rehabilitation, forget drug addiction for a second, but let's get to the core root of the process behind the idea of rehabilitation. Pardon my dogs. In the idea of a rehabilitation, it is meant to specifically be in order to reverse the stunting process that which the addiction has caused, let alone fight away from the addiction, which in the idea of the addiction, you're pursuing a beautiful feeling. But in the beautiful feeling you are pursuing, you have to essentially imagine yourself as a horse with a carrot in front of its face. You're actively chasing that beauty, but it's not going anywhere, yet you are continuously moving in the direction at which you think or perceive or experience the beauty, which in itself, drug experience is a very much real experience. It is simply where you draw the beauty from in order to experience the beauty elsewhere. That becomes a problem. In the understanding of addiction, if you were to then look at the particular point from the perspective of, I can quit anytime I want, I just choose not to. That addiction attitude in itself is essentially the deepest root behind the addiction itself, when the individual essentially recognizes they know they have a problem, they just don't want to quit. And at that particular notion, you would then see the fundamental root of the addiction itself, which is the transference of beauty from one place to another. And in this particular manifestation, you might see where the individual's mind might now warp in an opposite polar in itself, in a opposing polar force in itself, pardon me. But from the addiction itself, you could see the individual could bounce back and say, based on the behavior I have been projecting in my life, in the pursuit of a beautiful feeling resulting in the deterioration of the physical life in order to experience mental beauty, I then choose to value physical life more than the mental beauty itself. Or you see the polar opposing force from which the addicted self would then go into the mind of, based on the mental beauty I am able to generate in my mind, I then transfer that beauty into my life. But in the analysis of where the notion of where your current state of life is, I would argue that that is not a healthy choice based on the current analysis of your current situation, which means there is an addiction at the root core of the feeling. In order to experience a breakage from the addiction, you must decide where you place the choice, which is, in the choice of making this decision, I chase this feeling. But the moment I end chasing that feeling, I regain the feeling of my life. Well, all of a sudden you might see your family, your friends, on and on and on. All the people that you have met in your life might come together and re-invite you into their life at this particular point, because you see that there is an actual new perspective, a growth in the person, which some might argue at some point you just don't ever change. Well, how long has that attitude been present? If it's for some 30 plus years, then I would argue that that attitude would have started at 30 years old. And if you never change at 30, then you would say you never change beyond the point at which you're born. If we're basing it on 30-year fragments, of time. And in the analysis of the fundamental root cause of it is where the basis of the analysis of the fundamental addiction stems from. In the development of the young self, which in the lack of potential paternal love, whether it be father or mother, you then see a bringing up of chasing a feeling in order to feel love, in order to replace a love that was not experienced growing up. And that is the root cause of addiction, which now, based on this particular analysis and the current state of life and the current state of the potential children you might have in life, what do you value more, the high or your life? Because if you can't separate the two, I would argue that the addiction has, in its essence, taken over you. So what's the point of the rehabilitation? Well, in the stunting that you create as a result of the stimulus, which you might feel you experience beauty here, but you're stunting the beauty here. Which now that you've stunted the beauty here, without the use of the substance, you yourself don't experience the beauty here anymore. And so, in the idea of addiction, we have to get to the core fundamental root at which you then find the parasite is planted. Thank you.